Hey there, Film Buds. Welcome back to the Film Buds podcast. I am your host, Paul.
And I'm Lauren.
And this is episode 223. It's our first episode in June.
Woo! June! Summertime.
If you were with us last week, we just finished Asian American Pacific Islander Heritage Month. All throughout May. We've got 4 episodes that you can go back and listen to, but we just finished that up last week with Paper Tigers and Ping Pong Playa.
That's right.
And it was a great time. It was a lot of fun. It was a fun month. And if you're new to the show, each month we kind of try and go through and center what we talk about around an idea, either a holiday or even just a time of year, a sort of feeling. Mm-hmm. And so, since last month was Asian American Pacific Islander Heritage, we did that. June is Pride Month.
Yes, it is.
If you didn't know, because of every single store that you probably shop at, whether it be online or in person, putting a rainbow either somewhere in front of the store or on a shirt or a keychain
or something. It's the whole store is probably dripping with it in at least the front part.
Yeah. And so, but in a less cynical sense, it is legitimately Pride Month. It is a great month. It is a time to sort of celebrate and raise awareness about LGBT plus community, and it's sort of a really interesting thing. It's actually a distinctly American tradition. It started here in the U.S., but it's now recognized globally, and it's a time to sort of recognize and celebrate the history, but also the struggles that the LGBT plus community has faced in history. So, since that's our sort of center point for the main discussion of our show, we'll be discussing the history of Pride. We're going to go back, and for today's episode, we decided to go as far back as we could in history. And we're going back to a film from 1919. We found the earliest film that features a gay character. After that, we're going to move on to some news, some what we're watching, and that sort of thing. Before we get started too far into the conversation, dear, what are your thoughts on Pride? What do you know of Pride? Have you ever partaken in a Pride parade?
I have not partaken in a Pride parade. I guess I'm going to answer these in reverse order. I'm answering them in however order I feel.
Fuck it.
No, I've never experienced a Pride before. I guess the closest thing I have to experiencing Pride is working at Express in Times Square and them giving us free shirts that didn't fit. That had a rainbow on them and that said, like, Express is the brand that, I don't know, probably stands with you. I don't know. I wear it all the time, but I don't know what it says. It doesn't matter.
I don't remember what it says, but I remember that it's awkward in its grammar.
Yeah.
Whenever I read it, I'm like, it's missing a word.
Yeah, it's a really crappy try. But that's like the closest thing that I have to that. It's got 2018 on it, and it was literally a free T-shirt that if I had bought it would have cost me $30. But yeah, no, I've known, I guess, about Pride. I'm a little like whiffy on the origins of Pride as like a.
Well, aren't you in luck?
I know. I always come here for a good old history lesson. It's what keeps my brain sharp, honestly. But I have been like a part, as a member of society of this evolution in American history, because not only is it from before our times, but it's also currently still ever changing. landscape as well. History is still being made right now
in this field.
Yeah, exactly. And so it's really, great to live in these changing times of positivity and positive growth and movement. And that's great. And I think that I actually had like a whole thought about, because you were talking about it is about celebration, but it's also about the struggle. And I was thinking about a lot of our, heritage months, including Pride Month, are about individuals and groups of people that have struggled. And then I think that's probably like my best answer for anybody who's like, why isn't there a white celebration holiday? It's because technically throughout history, white people have never been the ones struggling in a grand scheme.
And that's not necessarily the way that the narrative of American history is structured.
Yes.
It's one of exceptionalism, not suffering.
Yes, exactly. And so, like, why on earth would we have another thing celebrating your greatness when in actuality we can spread awareness and a new love for other things that are contrary to how you view your everyday. And that's and I think that's really interesting. And I had that whole epiphany while we were talking about it. I actually like wrote it down on a piece of paper so I wouldn't forget to bring it up. But no, I
was wondering what you were writing. I thought I was whiffing the intro.
No. I was having a thought, and I was like, "Oh crap! Hold on to this one. Don't escape from me."
This is a good one. Hold on.
No, literally. But yeah, no, I think that Pride is a great time. There are so many different things to celebrate about Pride, and about the LGBTQ plus community. There's so many different levels to it, and there's so many different ways of being a part of this, and I think that that's just so beautiful and so inspiring, and like we need to be here to not only educate people about it, but also to be a support of it as well. I think that all of these months are about that, but I think that this is in a group of people that have been oppressed for so long in such drastic and unseen ways that like we don't know their history because we've literally scrubbed it from all of the books.
It's really funny you mentioned that. That's going to come up again later.
I love this. This is great. I'm having a great time. That idea is going to come up again
later. You're really lining it up today, dear.
I know. I'm sorry. I just am passionate.
No, I think it's great. Before, real quickly, I don't want to, stretch for too long, but are there any movies that sort of off the top of your head before we watched the movies that we watched for Pride Month, are there any movies that sort of came to your mind, or shows even, that came to your mind as this is associated with Pride on a certain level?
I guess for me it's like really anything that has like, like a gay character.
A strong, openly queer in some form.
Yeah, character. Exactly. I mean, I guess I was very much specifically thinking about Glee. No,
well, really anything Ryan Murphy does, because he is a gay man.
Yeah,
and so he bakes that into everything that he does.
Yeah, and I think that, that was something that I thought of like almost instantly, was like, oh, anything that has like a predominantly queer character, for sure, here we go. And for the most part, that is usually either homosexuality or like lesbians in in a grand scheme, because it's almost as easy as like pairing up a man and a woman for people writing these things. They're like, there we go, it's not any more complicated than that, it's just one thing. Once we get too more complicated than that, then that's when they're like, I don't want to touch that. That's when we need to call the experts. But other than that, oh gosh, I guess I don't know. It's hard to like pinpoint, I guess, for.
I would you like me to maybe throw out a few?
Sure. Yes, that would be very helpful. Actually,
Moonlight.
I've never seen Moonlight.
Oh, it's a great one. We should really watch Moonlight. You'll love that one. It's a tremendous movie. We've got the script for it as well.
Yes, we do. We got the A24 script for it. We need to get some more of their scripts. I love them.
Oh my god, I had another one on the tip of my tongue, and it just absolutely vanished.
That's why I wrote things
I'll go
down.
with The Birdcage.
Okay, that's a good one. I was gonna say that one, but literally Glee slammed itself front.
Like the Kool-Aid Man, right through the wall.
Exactly. Honestly, that's how those first kind of seasons. Remember?
But instead of going, oh yeah, it went a cappella.
It did, to a song that shouldn't be.
Yeah.
But they were going to regionals.
And then nationals.
That's right.
No, I legitimately had like another one. It was just there on the tip of my tongue. I'm really kicking myself over it suddenly just slipping away. Like, just there it went.
I guess in the movie.
Oh, Brokeback Mountain.
World. Oh, that's a good one. That's good. I've never seen that one either, but I lived in the times when that movie came out, so I'm aware. I guess thinking like outside of the movie genre a little bit, Rent.
Yeah.
That was a huge touchstone for like my adolescence and I guess not my adolescence, but my like preteen and teenage years were really focused on that and like the story and the great time with that. Also, could have probably fallen in this month.
Yeah, easily.
Oh gosh, there was another show that I just thought of that I can see the characters in my mind, but the name of the show is gone. It'll come back to me. That's fine.
We're both just doing great on this one right now.
No, yeah, but the thing is that I guess that, makes a little bit of a point here.
It does, on a certain level.
With the fact that, like, we're having such a hard time pinpointing, like, things that we would consider within this genre, but that makes sense because how many people are truly making things in an honest sense.
Yeah.
With this in mind.
Yeah, not just sort of token representation.
Yeah, exactly.
Put a kiss in the background and it's...
Or you've got the token gay equivalent character who you throw in and it's all of the tropes exactly how we all expect them to be, which doesn't make it any better than it being just a stereotype,
Not sure, I guess, if I would lump this in Pride Month, but this is, you were talking about how it's typically representations of gay or lesbian. There is, the non-binary character in, The Broker in John Wick 3.
Yes.
There have been, in media more recently, some non-binary characters that have shown up. There's a show called Billions in Showtime.
Okay.
That has another non-binary character that became like a prominent character.
Well, I think that's where the Q comes in.
Yeah.
Because we've just got the other overarching...
No, for sure, but I was just thinking about, in terms
just
of
in
like
general,
what we've seen in film and media recently.
Well, yeah, and I guess in that in a similar wavelength to that, then we've also got Orange is the New Black.
Oh yeah, that's a perfect example for a Pride show in general, really.
Well, yeah, because not only do we have a lot of same-sex couples in there, but we've also got
Laverne Cox.
Yes, as well, and that's who I was thinking of when I mentioned, and then I was like, oh yeah, there are a lot of couples in that show about a woman's prison.
But I guess.
Yes.
We've sort of talked that idea, quite thoroughly, and I guess we should stop teasing and jump into the real meat of the discussion.
Yes. Let's learn a little bit about Pride, shall we?
Sure. If you're new here, welcome to the history lesson. I'm very proud of them.
You should be.
So, what is Pride? So Pride, like we said, most heritage months are fairly modern in their creation as well. I think it's also worth mentioning that, like, heritage months in the sense of AAPI month, Queer History Month, or, LGBT History Month, which is a different month than Pride Month, all of these kinds of things are much more modern...
I did know that.
...creations.
Well, I think that also, the landscape is changing.
No, for sure. And so, but even though they're new in concept, they typically have an origin, right? You can typically go back and you can find where something starts. So, Pride Month, of course, began as Pride Day, but very specifically Gay Pride Day. Mm-hmm. And it was held in late June. Usually it was held as the last Sunday of June, but even that was sometimes a little bit of a floating date. And it's meant to celebrate the LGBTQ plus community. It typically includes parades, demonstrations, picnics, parties, festive events, but it can also include vigils, memorials of icons of the movement, who have typically then been lost in some sort of negative way, either through hate crime, the AIDS epidemic, something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Where does Pride come from? Like I said, it's Gay Pride Day is where it sort of started. And the reason that it's held in late June is to commemorate the Stonewall uprising or the Stonewall riots from New York City. Are you familiar at all with the Stonewall?
Yes. I couldn't probably give you, like, any specifics other than the fact that of, like, you know, the bare bones of the event. So I'm gonna hand this one right back to you, honestly.
All right. So the Stonewall riots happened June 28th, 1969. The Stonewall Inn was on Christopher Street in, I believe, Greenwich. And it was a common nightclub for the queer community in New York, including, you know, all kinds of people. You know, the poor, the downtrodden, the homeless, the young. Everyone could go there. And it was a local watering hole and sort of safe spot for the community. And it was also regularly raided by police. And they were regularly harassed due to morality codes that were in place in New York City at the time.
I mean, that makes sense. You know, when you literally kind of open your doors and allow anybody to join your party, of course, someone is going to be like, oh, offended.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that makes sense.
And there were these morality codes in place in the city at the time, and they were very strictly enforced by the NYPD at the time. And what ends up happening is they come in, and they did, through what these morality, you know, laws called for, they did like a sort of forced sex check. That's what they demanded.
What does that even mean?
A sort of, to put it, you know, euphemistically, a sort of on-the-spot look.
Oh, that's disgusting.
And so it ended up being the final tipping point for a lot of people. A lot of people refused to take part in it. A lot of people got disorderly. People started to get arrested. And people started to, at that moment, push back.
Mm-hmm.
And it led to a riot that lasted like all night. And it ended up turning into a multi-day demonstration across all of Christopher Street.
Copy.
And those are the Stonewall riots sort of in a very quick nutshell. And that's where Pride sort of roots from initially. Some key figures, just to throw out a few, there are several. I suggest that you go and look up the history of the Stonewall riots. It's very interesting stuff. Some key figures from the Stonewall riots, just to name three quick ones. There's Raymond Castro, who was a Puerto Rican baker, and he was the first person to be arrested. He was 28 years old at the time.
Oh, wow.
And he was also, like, one of the first people to fight back. You've got Jerry Hoos, who was a Christopher Street resident who took part in the riots and other demonstrations on the street. He was also a founding member of the Gay Liberation Front, and he helped establish the services and advocacy for the GLBT elders, which was also meant to be a bridging point between the young queer community and the older queer community.
A copy. Okay.
And it was also meant to look out for the older members of that society who were, you know, elders are already very vulnerable members of society. And so then you add on any kind of gay, lesbian, etc. label on top of that, and it only furthers that.
Yeah.
And so it was also meant to help provide services to that community.
Yes.
Then you have, of course, the most infamous one of them all, Marsha P. Johnson, who was a trans woman and an activist, and she's considered one of the three people more responsible sort of for the spirit of the riots, and is considered a leader in the community at that time. And she was involved with a lot of activism in various forms and in multiple groups. And then she unfortunately passed away in 1992 in what was originally deemed a suicide, but then reopened as what is now a cold case homicide.
I mean, probably.
So that's a little bit of some people who were involved in it. 1 year later, Brenda Howard, who is a bisexual activist, went and did the Christopher Street Parade in 1970 and then again in 1971. And those were the first two Pride parades.
Cool. Okay.
And then since then there have been various parades and other events, and they have continued to sort of just expand until eventually they took up June.
I love that that's how this happened.
It just sort of became a festival. I don't believe that, as far as I could tell, I don't think that Pride is necessarily like a national, as voted upon by Congress, month. I think that that's only October. Pride is very much a spirit of the movement from where it started. It just grew.
Okay.
Thing.
So I have to actually, I thought a little bit harder about your original question of if I had ever experienced a Pride, and I have to revise my statement.
Excellent.
I did, in a sense, experience Pride while living in New York, honestly, because the thing is like, so I got off from work, and some of my friends from work we were going to go downtown and experience the shenanigans, basically. And we like bar hopped for a little bit, and it was like fun, and we got, dressed up as much as you can, honestly, in the New York summer heat, in outside, everything is pretty much outside. But yeah, like it was a lot of fun. I can't believe that I forgot about this. I only did like a day's worth of like priding, so like it wasn't really like a month-long endeavor. There was just like, there was one really big party that was going around downtown. Like I guess it I can't remember what day it was, but like I think that some event was going on around it as well. And so yeah, and then I took my very, very long subway ride back home afterwards.
Well, at least you have a Pride story.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I expect to experience Pride more than that, but honestly, my New York days are starting to become a blur. A little bit. So,
Has it been that long?
I mean, it's been...
I'm gonna blame COVID brain a little bit as well.
No, honestly, it's just been kind of like a nebulous...
But
yeah,
no, that's a great little story. Thank you for including that.
Yes, I mean, it's not very exciting, but like, it was a whole party in an entire neighborhood, which was pretty weird and exciting.
Yeah, and that's really, sort of the foundational spirit of it.
Yeah.
So as I mentioned, the nationally recognized thing that, is Congress approved and such is LGBT History Month, which was founded in 1994.
Okay.
And it is in October to coincide with National Coming Out Day, which is October 11th, and the anniversary of October 14th, 1979, which is the LGBT March on Washington.
Okay, wow.
So that's the sort of nationally recognized alternative that you have as well.
Okay.
So you've got Pride here, which is all based around, Stonewall and the activism side of it, and sort of, from the movement itself.
Yeah, and then you've got the
History Month, the proper History Month in October.
Yes, copy. Okay.
And so that's a little bit for y'all about Pride.
Nice. Awesome.
And so that's why we're celebrating it this month. And of course, we love to look at film in all of its context. And if you look at film's history and open up the door, especially outside of just the context of movies that have sound, movies made in America or the UK.
Mm-hmm.
You really find a lot of examples of all kinds of stuff in cinema. And so we did some digging around into cinema history from around the world. We actually covered something that is considered to be the first on-screen kiss between men. It's Wings.
Is it really?
It is considered to be the first potentially romantic on-screen kiss between men.
Delightful. Look at us.
And
really
so
doing
if you
stuff.
haven't listened to that episode, go and check that one out. And then on top of that, what we ended up finding was a really fascinating movie from 1919. It's a German film. You know how we love our teens' German cinema here on Film Buds. It's actually legitimately one of my favorite pockets of film history from around the globe. And so, wouldn't you know it, it didn't let me down. Late teens silent German cinema
Here we go.
had the first on-screen representation of a openly gay character that also, I mean, obviously the open part states this, that wasn't coded in any way and also was not an openly negative portrayal in any kind of way.
No, yeah. I mean, I guess without, further ado, we might as well just get started.
Exactly. So we're going to go ahead and jump on into it. So for a little bit of background for y'all, different from The Others was made at a really interesting point just after World War I, where there was essentially no censorship in place.
Okay.
And so people struck while the iron was hot.
Mm-hmm.
And I think partially because of the strict censorship, but also because of the outcome of the war and what people saw in the war and in the society that led to the war, people wanted to talk about social issues.
Mm-hmm.
So one person in particular was a producer named Richard Oswald.
Okay.
He made several social films that were all supposed to be socially progressive, and he usually went and consulted with experts, one expert in particularly, and would craft these stories about social issues, where also in that story someone would go to an expert in that field, and the expert would explain why society was like X, and why X idea was good or bad, depending.
Okay.
So we'll talk about the example that happens in the film that we watched.
Yes. Perfect.
So there was a law on the books in Germany called, it was Penal Code Paragraph 175, and it had been implemented in 1871, and it was essentially a gay ban.
Okay.
And it was actually toughened under Nazi occupation, and it wasn't completely repealed from the Penal Code of Germany until 1994.
Wow! 94?
Yeah.
Wow, that was way too late, but that's fine. They did it.
I should also, you just said at least they did it. I was about to say, well, at least they did it officially on their legal documents and didn't leave it up to a Supreme Court case that could be overturned.
I mean, honestly.
So, the first movement against the law actually happened in 1897, and it was led by a man named Dr. Magnus Hirschfeld. And he was an expert in sex and sexuality and gender. And he consulted on the film. He was the expert on this film. He is also the one that plays
The expert.
the expert that they go to that explains how being gay isn't bad.
Oh my god! Wow.
And so that's sort of how this whole thing worked.
I love it. You could be a scientist and an actor. Anything is possible.
In 1920s-ish Germany.
Yeah.
Sure is.
Man,
So-
progressive back then. There we go. We found the era.
They were specifically called Enlightenment films at the time. They included topics around abortion, STDs, etc. And he made about 150 films during this window.
Wow.
And different from the others was the first about paragraph 175, and openly about homosexuality. The outcry about this film and several of his Enlightenment films...
Shocking.
...led to the reestablishment of censorship laws.
Shocking.
And so, by 1920, and then eventually 1921, almost all of his films were banned. Part of the reason that this film is only a fragment... Mm-hmm. This is where I'm going to bring it back to what you mentioned earlier about scrubbing out people's existence.
Ooh.
Nazis.
Oh,
what was part of the Nazi movement? It wasn't just the eradication of Jewish people, it was the eradication of everyone that was considered outside and other. And that also included trying to destroy every piece of culture produced by that group of people. There was an iconoclasm, right, of people trying to go through and wreck all of the iconography and destroy it and burn it and ruin it. And there are works that are lost forever because of that. And that's partially why this only exists as a fragment.
I mean, I can't imagine, I guess, what we have of the rest of it that we're missing. I mean, but I felt like it was
every time there was a lengthy paragraph. And the reason that they introduced the characters by a still photo that looked really awkward, but they knew who the character was them using notes about the film and what they knew was missing to fill in all of that data.
Fascinating. I was wondering why, like, some of the
characters would just suddenly...
were just, like, photos.
And they were so... Like, they talked about the one guy's sister so much. The one guy's sister was a character. Like, all of her scenes are gone.
Huh.
So...
I think it's funny that they destroyed all of the parts that, like, didn't really pertain to, like, his homosexuality.
Yeah, someone worked really hard to save the important bits.
Oh, well, I mean, hey, good for them.
Someone worked really hard to save the important parts. They were like, here, you can burn these.
Perfect. No, I promise that's the whole thing.
No, that's all of it. I swear.
Yeah.
And so, that's one of the reasons that we have it. It was released May 28th, 1919. It has a runtime currently of 50 minutes. It is directed by Richard Oswald. It is written by Richard Oswald and Magnus Hirschfeld. And it stars Conrad Veidt as Paul Corner, Fritz Schultz as Kurt Sievers, and Magnus Hirschfeld as doctor and sexologist.
That's right.
And the plot is two male musicians fall in love, but blackmail and scandal makes the affair take a tragic turn. So they've now, of course, listened to me talk about this for an indefinite period of time. Why don't you go ahead and take it away? Dear, what did you think of Different from the Others? This is our first incomplete film. We've never done one.
Yes, because all of the other silent films that we've done have been complete works. You see, though, the entire thing. And I guess that's why, for this one, I didn't really care so much that there were paragraphs and stuff in it. I just assumed that was stuff that, like, they just didn't have the budget or something to show me.
Kind of like how we would get some pretty lengthy bits in... Where Are My Children?
Oh, yeah. Or Nosferatu. Like,
yeah, Nosferatu can have some chunks.
Yeah, out of nowhere, it'll just be like, the whole screen is words. Read it. And you've got a time limit. So yeah, they didn't, like, faze me at all, and I was really curious, I guess. I was like, where are the missing parts? I just assumed that was kind of what they what they wanted in a certain way. You know, fragment. I was like, oh, it could be 5 minutes missing from this. It's a fragment, you know, of the original whole.
No, that's fair. I mean, to be considered a fragment is a nebulous claim.
Yeah, exactly. So I didn't really, I guess, know how much of the movie we were truly missing. But it didn't take away at all from my enjoyment of watching this film. I liked this way better than Where Are My Children? This movie.
Yes, even though it's a fragment, it's a much better movie.
Oh
than
my
Where Are
gosh,
My
yeah,
Children.
that movie was horrifying.
And it's not just because. Let me say this. It's not just because I disagree with some of the message of Where Are My Children. It is also because that movie, in my opinion, even as a silent film, is poorly made. Partially because our actors aren't doing enough to convey what is happening in any of this stuff. No,
you're just lost in this nebulous, and then out of nowhere they start throwing plot at you, and you're just like, I wasn't prepared for any of this. You could have had actors tell me these things, you know, with their body
actions. Language, yeah.
That's with their actions. But no, I never had that problem with this movie at all. I wasn't really prepared. I guess my only note for this movie in its current format is where the subtitles are located. Knocked out a lot of, like, actual me reading of stuff, and it was really annoying. Like, I would miss, like, final sentences of, like, paragraphs because there was just the subtitle blocking the entire thing that we couldn't get rid of because they were like, the Russians need to read this.
Yeah, so we'll I guess we'll talk vaguely about that in just a second. No, I agree with you. I think that this is a really well-made silent movie. Germans in the 19-teens figured the fuck out of cinema.
Oh, yeah, it's absolutely fantastic.
Nosferatu. Cabinet of Dr. Caligari. Different from the others. Metropolis. There are so many examples of early German film that are absolutely incredible.
Yeah, for sure.
They figured this shit out.
And I guess I was so taken away by the message of this movie as well, and how much they wanted to humanize.
Mm-hmm.
You know, our lead, our homosexual character who is being persecuted, and they literally do so many ways of being like, this is completely natural, and this is scientists in the early 1900s that are like, no, this isn't a problem, and yet here we are. Here we are literally 100 years later being like, it's definitely a problem, so now I know what ancestry I'm gonna point at and be like, you guys are crazy.
Well, think about also, though, what's really hot in this region of Europe in the late 1800s going into the 1900s.
I mean, I can guess, but I think that you should just give the answer.
Psychoanalysts. You've got Freud coming out. You've got Jung coming out. You've got the birth of these people who are really delving into what is it to be human at the most fundamental level. What are the core concepts that unite us all? What are these things that are universal in us, both positively and negatively, that exist across all of human society? And you look at early German film, you look at, all of the early expressionist horror films from that time, from Germany at that time, they are all dripping with psychology. They are all brimming with trying to figure out the darker, twistier parts of the brain. And you look here, and you've got someone who is trying to figure out this part of humanity. It's here. Why is it here? What is it?
No, yeah, and I also I think that the way that they made this film as what they were making it to be. It's an educational film, you know, this is supposed to, you're supposed to watch this and you're supposed to change your opinion about our main character based on the circumstances of the film that we watch. You know, you're supposed to understand, and then that's also why, you know, they have the expert come in and talk about it very scientifically, very, very matter-of-factly, being like, no, you know, it's completely natural, and this is why, and, you know, it's nothing to be ashamed of, there's nothing wrong with your son. You know, he's just like, those are the facts. Like, it's not, like, over-dramatized or anything like that, and I really think that what it was supposed to be as an educational film, I think that it was completely successful in that as well. I very much enjoyed it.
No, and to touch on 2 points, it's called an Enlightenment film. You were supposed to be educational is fine. But like, you were supposed to be enlightened.
Yeah, it's a light bulb is supposed to go off.
You know what the ideals were? Here's a little history lesson that I'll crack out for y'all about America. I know you love it.
Yeah.
You know what the Founding Fathers' ideals were referred to? They were referred to as being based in enlightenment. These films were supposed to be films that helped you stretch out and reach further and provide you with how you could understand it. And on top of also just explaining it, what I also enjoyed was that they showed how the criminalizing of it didn't stop the problem, air quotes around problem, and it also only criminalized or made them the victims of the criminalizing.
Yeah, exactly.
Because our main character ends up becoming the subject of an extortionist because he can't live openly.
And this person is literally using his life as blackmail.
Yeah.
His truth as blackmail.
To completely undermine him. And even though in the end, spoiler alert, it's 100 years old, whatever. Spoiler alert. Even in the end, even though the extortionist gets the harsher sentence, he knows in the end that when he walks out, being labeled an extortionist is going to get brushed off faster by society than being branded gay.
Well, yeah.
And so I think that the film does a really great job of just landing every single blow that it wants to hit, even as a fragment.
No, yeah, and honestly, like, it was fascinating to see this issue that we've been living with our entire life, you know, the issue of equality in all senses and all facets for all people.
Yeah.
Watching the struggle of this happen and the persecution through a lens of 100 years ago.
And to your point of also seeing how similar the argument still is.
Yeah, you know, I think that we're just, you know, we're in a circle. We're in a repeating thing where we have a revolution and then it settles and then we have another revolution. And it's not always the revolution that you're rooting for, but there's a revolution happening, you know? And I think that I really enjoyed this movie a lot, and I found it very educational and very insightful.
But very, very well made. You can buy it as an incomplete fragment, and honestly, like, I really might buy the movie.
No, I would love to add it to the collection. I think that it is truly something that is worth preserving in a more solid sense than, like, you know...
where we found it.
Exactly.
Speaking of where we found it, so it is a little bit harder to find. You can find it on DVD. There are places to find it online. The place that we found it was posted in Russian, and so everything had a Russian subtitle to it.
Yes.
And so, to Lauren's point, what was happening was, because of the place that we watched it being in Russian, we were losing entire chunks to the Cyrillic alphabet, like, right at the bottom. Because
it wasn't just, like, you know, they were literally, like, you're reading this. And so it had, like, a black or, like, an opaque, you know, gray right there where you were like, I can't see through this.
Yeah.
You know, like, I couldn't see what the words could possibly be. if I even, at points I was like, maybe if I paused the film right now and
it
really
would get rid of the subtitles and I could read it.
Yeah, or like I could see these bits of letters for long enough to figure out what words they are behind them, you know. But it would go by so fast, and it was very frustrating. But even with that, for the most part, seeing the film, I could understand everything, which was great. Because the film itself is translated into, I mean, like, obviously it's a silent film.
Yeah.
But like the cards
are all in English.
Which is very very helpful. It wasn't like you were trying to read, you know, German with some English with some Russian
over it. Yeah.
No. But yeah, no, I really enjoyed this film a lot. It's fascinating also knowing that so far back, and also honestly even further back than this, you know, people have had, we've had both opinions for so long about this, you know, and about other things that we've struggled to actually make, you know, any good out of, because we're constantly standing in one spot. But that's fine. But this was like a voice for that, you know, in a huge facet, in a huge medium, for like the first time. You know, you can write about these issues and, you know, send it to, and back in those days, actually get it peer reviewed, and like people go, oh yes, this is scientific. But this is like this is the first time, and in a positive light, I'm sure, that anything like this has existed, and that's why they wanted to scrub it from the history books. But I just think that's I just think it's crazy that we're still here. You know,
so close to here.
Yeah, that I can look back at this and go, no, I know exactly how this guy feels.
Like, are we maybe further? In some ways, perhaps. But at the core idea, are we really further? Not by much. Not by enough. Not by enough. And I think that that's also some of the underlying idea, actually, that underlies a lot of activist sentiment. Of, are we further? Yeah. But not by much, and not as much as we could be.
Yeah, it's kind of like, let's, I guess, compare it to, like, the minimum wage.
Yeah.
You know,
the fight for 15.
We got it increased. We did it.
But now it's still too little.
But now it's too little too late. And we've been fighting for this number for so long.
That like, now people are like, you want to go bigger?
Because, like, what do you mean? You know, it took us this long to get to 15. There's no way that you're going to see...
I can take it up to any... I'm not going past 20.
No, we're not going past 20 for the next 30 years at this rate, because it took us, 30 years to get it past 725.
And it's still not a change in the federal.
No. It
is only a change at certain states. The federal minimum wage is still $7.25.
And that's exactly how it feels for, like... For pride issues, for really any ethnic group that
some states have it better, but the minimum wage is still $7.25.
And at a federal level, you're still this.
Yes.
You know, states can make their opinions and make their rules and this, that, and the other, but until it is a national precedent, it might as well not exist.
Great, the Supreme Court, to bring, I guess, this part of the discussion back, great, the Supreme Court has set an establishment on X. There still isn't a hard law on the books.
So therefore...
that protects X.
It's like having an entirely an unlined road. And you're like, yeah, so traffic is totally going in a direction, but technically, I do not have to. And therefore, I can go around it whatever way I want to.
Yeah, the only thing that's making sure that is the norm is people following it.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. And so, just, you know, seeing something like this is just so eye-opening, so inspiring, and like history was doing some good stuff kind of way. It's
surprisingly forward.
If
you have never seen it, it is surprisingly forward for a movie from 1919.
Like, it is
a movie that came out 1 year before here in the US women could vote, has some of the most progressive, openly spoken ideas on sex and gender I've seen in just about any movie.
Since. Pretty much. I mean, that's obviously like an overstatement.
But like,
but like, it is truly astounding how progressive, how forward thinking, how equal this movie wants it to be.
Yeah.
And yet, it also is so heartbreaking to know that, like, we could have gone even more forward from here, but instead we keep going back.
Yeah. For
a period of time, and then making it to literally this point again, and then backtracking again.
It's like 2 steps forward and like 1.5 back.
Yeah,
you know, we always still have that little bit of progress, but we always come back in some way.
Yeah, and it makes me want to, just keep going.
Yeah.
Keep fighting the good fight, as so many are for not only like this season, but for all seasons. I think that it's truly important that we stop we stop this cycle. It's maddening.
Yeah.
I'm angry at it. I'm sure not everyone is, but I'm angry. It shouldn't keep repeating. It's pointless then.
Yeah. So if you had to rate Different from the Others out of 5, what would you rate it?
I think that I will give Different from the Others a 4. Just because there are some technical issues with this current version of it. Like, I understand that. I find the weird photos of the families as they're, like, doing a thing, like, so weird. Because it's not even, like, a good photo.
But that's all they got.
No, I know, and I know that. But also, as a whole piece, I still have to, I have to grade it accordingly. But I think that the acting is really great. I always love this genre in makeup. I love all of the weird smoky eyes that the German cinema of silent age was like, everybody gotta have some hard eyeliner.
That was all silent film. Look at Charlie Chaplin.
I mean, yeah, but nobody's looking at his eyeliner. They're looking at the mustache.
Fair.
I truly just enjoyed the hell out of this movie a lot, and I do want to go back and rewatch this movie
in a better format.
Yes, obvious, yeah. And actually get to find out those last little bits of things that we definitely don't know.
Fair.
Driving me up a wall. But yeah, no, I think that this movie is great.
I'm going to go with a 5. I'm very impressed with this movie. I really think that I think it's fantastic. If I was running some sort of film history class,
this would definitely
be foundational.
Oh, for sure.
I think it's a great movie. I think it's really, really interesting. I think it has great history. I think the story of how we have this movie tells a great story. And I really enjoyed the movie and the experience of learning more about it, and I really appreciate what this film is and all that it stands for.
No, yeah, it really personified a universal struggle.
Mm-hmm.
And
that's why Pride is around the world.
Yeah, for sure.
So to round out the show, of course, we always have what we're watching. So Lauren and I've been, of course, watching the Star Wars movies. I made my way up to Return of the Jedi, and then Lauren joined me for The Force Awakens and The Last Jedi.
Yes.
The Last Jedi, after going back and rewatching, I still don't know how to feel about me in Star Wars anymore. Honestly, I really don't.
I think that for me, Star Wars ends kind of like how I feel about Marvel, where the last phase was my favorite, and then it stopped there. For me, it's all right, The Last Jedi is my favorite, and then we stop there for all of it.
But I still struggle with a lot of what I feel and how I feel about Star Wars, and the community and where the franchise is and is going. And honestly, like, going back and rewatching all of them, the one that did, I will say this, get me the most excited again about rewatching it was The Last Jedi. Like, I really, really enjoyed rewatching that one a lot. And it really might be my favorite of them, such as they stand right now. I really adore that film a lot. And so I really enjoyed going back and rewatching those. On top of that, Lauren saw Top Gun for the first time.
Yes, I did. I really enjoyed it. It is so 80s. It is a great ride. You know, I love a good 80s movie. You know I do. And oh gosh, I mean, did Top Gun come out in 86, you know, right in the middle, right in the pocket.
Right in the sweet spot of what 80s movies are.
Yeah, exactly. And this is a type of 80s movies that I don't watch a lot, you know. It's like the action, you know, movie, but it hits all of those good sweet moments really well. I think that it's a great well acted movie, well written movie. And for the most part, obviously, I think that the iconic volleyball scene is hilariously, like, where did this come from?
Mm-hmm, that's why it stands out.
No, yeah, because literally, like, we're just trugging along, and then out of nowhere,
volleyball.
Boom, volleyball. Honestly, like, I think I love it more for that. Just the fact that they were like, and here's a cutaway to volleyball for a real quick bit. Let's watch some glistening man get no sand on themselves as they play beach volleyball action. But yeah, no, I had a blast. I'm really excited about watching the new one. We haven't watched it yet, but we are planning on doing it soon adjacent. Which I wanted to watch this before we did that because I didn't want to go into that movie not having any idea of what's going on other than being like, ooh, planes.
Tom Cruise.
Yeah, I finally get to hear people reference the hell out of the first one and not know what they're talking about. It's gonna be a blast. It's gonna be a fun time. Yeah, we watched a good little bit, honestly. Between the last time we recorded and today. That's pretty exciting.
Beyond that, I did want to get your thoughts on the Pinocchio trailer.
My thoughts on the Pinocchio trailer. I'm so mad that you brought this up. Oh God. I don't know if I've ever hated a thing more. I think that this was, honestly, from trailer alone, I honestly don't. It could probably make me cry. But I highly doubt it. I absolutely highly doubt it. It looks like a copy and paste. What if we put a live action filter on the original movie and then threw Tom Hanks in that
What
thing?
if we did it again, but shittier?
Oh God, it looks so bad. This makes me madder than the actual watching of Mulan did.
I'm sick to fucking death of them. I really am.
God, they're not even trying anymore. They used to actually be like, we're gonna make a live action version of this, and we're not gonna entirely copy and paste. And this, they made Tom Hanks look exactly like Geppetto, an Italian man in Italy. And they were like, this is fine. He looks like a cartoon.
I'm just gonna wait for the Guillermo Pinocchio.
I mean, yeah, obviously.
I'm just gonna wait for it.
Yeah, because at least Guillermo's...
He's gonna do something.
He's gonna do something fantastic. Whether I like it or not is up to me. But I know that he's gonna do something fantastic.
Yeah.
No, absolutely offended by this entire movie. It makes me so mad. When I saw, like, the cricket literally pop up, and I was like, no, he looks like a cartoon.
He looks like a cartoon cricket.
He looks like, I was like, they didn't even try to
make it like a photorealistic cricket.
Yeah, I was like, they didn't even try to the live Lion King thing
it's
where
a cartoon cricket.
It's so maddening. It's to the point where I was like, who is the puppet in this? If they all look like puppets.
The audience.
Oh, yeah. That's right. They said, dangle the keys. Look at it. Ooh, it's got Disney on it. And I hate. Absolutely hate. This is not the Tom Cruise movie. I mean, Tom Cruise. This is not the Tom Hanks movie that I want to watch.
No, that's fair.
Like at all. I'm fine. Let it go into the $5 bin, and maybe I'll pick it up.
Tom
Gemma
Hanks's streaming career is not for me. That's all I can say.
Gosh, yeah. No, I'm excited about the Elvis movie way more than this performance. This is
because it's going to a theater. He tried harder.
Yeah. I'm sure.
Beyond that, the other thing that I wanted to bring up was Netflix recently decided that it is no longer going to do a few different things. So it has laid off some people again, if I'm not mistaken. It has discontinued its live-action family film division. It has also discontinued doing director-driven projects that have an unlimited budget kind of a thing. So, Roma, Power of the Dog, probably, The Irishman, some of these movies that they have had recently that are these very prestige, Oscar-worthy titles, they're no longer making them. They are now going to focus entirely on 4-quadrant, crowd-pleasing, big-budget films.
So, schlock.
Yeah.
I mean, that's fine.
Churros.
Yeah. That's totally fine with me. I really don't care at this point anymore. You know, like, Netflix is a dumpster fire, and watch it burn. That's what I say. I mean, when was the last time, genuinely, that you were watching something on Netflix?
A show?
Yeah, any I guess Netflix original content, like, that you were like, I'm watching this.
The Power of the Dog.
Anything before that?
The only thing that's really popping to mind right now is either, like, The Irishman or Da 5 Bloods. It was the stuff that they're getting rid of.
No, honestly, right? See?
The stuff that was drawing me in is probably most of the stuff that they're chucking.
No, yeah, and I guess, like, for shows, like, the last time I was genuinely watching something...
I am gonna watch Stranger Things 4.
Well, yeah, obviously. I never got into Black Mirror, so, like, that's not...
And that didn't even start with them.
See, and that's just...
They just picked it up.
For me, I have no idea, man.
Well, and they're gonna stop doing that because they sunk $1 bajillion into Bandersnatch, which was never going to make back its money. And
it was a really interesting concept, and I enjoyed the watch of it, but I agree.
They had planned originally that they were going to create an entire division of branched narrative content.
So everything
and that was going to potentially be something that Netflix was known for, was creating all of these interactive branch narrative content shows. And so, yeah, they were going to have things where it wasn't just that you were rewatching the movie. You were going back and sinking every hour into it for all of the...
Well, yeah, I mean, I also understand that, but at the end of the day, you know, video games are already doing it more successfully.
And for cheaper.
Exactly, so I get why they didn't go down that rabbit hole. But, like, honestly, the last time that I was genuinely watching something, like, on Netflix that was... repeating, like, a coming out thing that they were, like, dropping, and I don't even know, I guess, if this was a Netflix original thing, but I do know that they canceled it, was the OA.
It was. They did 2 seasons and got rid of it.
I loved the OA. I thought the OA was fantastic, but again, like, it was all of these really interesting artsy things that, like, I looked at and I read the description and I saw the trailer, instead of the trailer just, like, appearing and wanting me to watch it so desperately, begging me to, and I'm going, ugh, mute it.
Well, I mean, I think it was pretty telling that the creator of BoJack Horseman essentially said that if BoJack Horseman came out at the point where he was ending his relationship with Netflix,
it would have never lasted.
It wouldn't have been continued for anything more than the first season and gone on to become one of the most popular Netflix shows ever. That's now in syndication on Comedy Central. It's so popular. It would have never gotten there.
No, but that's also because they've basically ruined their entire brand by chasing this rabbit hole of content creation instead of actually cultivating, good content.
They've been junkies on a high.
Yeah.
And finally they're hitting the plateau, which is about to become the crash.
Yeah, I mean they're never gonna get back to where they were.
No.
Not at this rate.
Honestly,
not ever at this point.
I think that they will probably continue on for a good period of time, but I think Netflix is in a really tight fucking spot. Yeah. Personally, because I don't think a lot of people fucking care anymore.
No, honestly, and I that was the one that I wanted. I only had Netflix.
Yeah.
I didn't have
Once upon a time.
I didn't have any of the other ones because I didn't need them. But now we have every streaming service and we hardly go to Netflix for any reason whatsoever.
This is also, though, so often what happens with people that disrupt and innovate in some sort of way is that it's then hard for them to continue doing it because they get so mired in the process that then they end up being the last people performing.
And the funny thing is when Netflix started out, you remember the early days of Netflix where there was just a sea of crap on there, and you I had the occasional great thing, but for the most part, you're what is all of this stuff from other places that they got for really cheap? And now it's all Netflix
produced stuff, and I go, what the fuck is all of this?
Yeah, because they can't possibly because they drop hundreds of things a day. There's no way that they can actually properly get me excited for anything anymore.
A Netflix comedy special means almost nothing.
Yeah.
It's almost like saying you have a podcast.
During the pandemic. Well, thank you very much. Film Butts was started before the pandemic. So,
that's right.
So we win on the sadness.
And we'll be here
after
maybe
the pandemic.
TBD.
We don't know when it's going to end.
Patent pending.
That's right. But yeah, I mean, remember when I was trying to watch movies from our movie collection while out of the house? I couldn't find anything on Netflix. I found one movie out of the 12 movies that you sent me. Only one of them was available on Netflix.
Yeah.
That used to not be the case.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous. But honestly, yeah, let them dig this hole to the center of the earth until their fingernails bleed. I just don't care anymore.
Yeah.
Because also, they don't care.
Yeah. The last thing that I wanted to bring up was, of course, last week, we lost a legend. The great Ray Liotta passed away very, very young. He was only 67. I know that some people might not consider that young if you yourself are young. But 67 is far too young. And he was one of the greats. I mean, I grew up watching Ray Liotta. Obviously, my first one was, I think, like a lot of film buffs, my first Ray Liotta movie was The Godfather. Or, not The Godfather, excuse me. Was Goodfellas.
I was like, he's not in The Godfather.
No, my first Ray Liotta movie was Goodfellas. And, he's so magnetic in that movie, and he just went on to have a great career after that. Killing Them Softly, more recently, his turn in Observe and Report. He was really such a tremendous actor, and it's a real shame that he passed away. He apparently passed away in his sleep, so at least I guess he went peacefully.
Yeah, and of places to be when you take your final breath, I mean, he was in the Dominican Republic. I think that's pretty fancy considering he was born in Jersey.
Fair enough.
Not saying, anything bad about that, but I'm not expecting to go out in the Dominican Republic. I've never even left the States.
No, I see where you're coming from, but it's a real shame, and If you're not familiar with his work, I definitely go and recommend that you not just go and look at Goodfellas, obviously, but also go and look at some of his other stuff that he did, because he was more than just Goodfellas. He had an entire filmography after that movie, and I really suggest that some of y'all go and look it up, and including some of his more recent work, because some of his more recent work is really great. He was the bad guy in Wild Hogs. I'm not saying that's necessarily one of his great works.
Oh
but
my gosh! I'm not even gonna lie. I think that might be my very first like not in actual like years time of like the earliest movie, but I think that might genuinely be
the first time that you watched a full movie start to finish where Ray Liotta was in it.
Yeah, because that's the movie with John Travolta, right?
Yeah, and,
Yeah!
and William H. Macy and
Oh
Martin
my
Lawrence and
gosh.
Tim Allen.
I didn't realize that was him, but that's
And,
how I know.
Marissa Tomei.
Yes. No, I didn't realize that was him, but that's usually my giveaway when I realize that I watched that movie really young and I had no idea who that actor was.
Yeah.
Until, a later point in my life. That's hilarious. I'm sorry. Not in like a ha-ha funny way, but in a, oh, really kind of way.
So
wow,
yeah.
You're not lying. I'm scrolling through currently his like cinematography, not cinematography, his acting career, and there are just multiple things for years here. Like 2011 has seven things. Some of them are shorts and TV stuff, but like he was a working actor.
Yeah.
And that's very impressive. Some voice stuff, TV shows, video games. That's very respectable, honestly. Very just consistent. I mean, he's going to be having stuff coming out
Posthumously, yeah, for a little while.
Yeah, and that's really incredible, truly. And you're completely right. We have lost a legend in the acting world, which is truly a tragedy. Just people don't work this hard anymore.
No, not like that. So I think that's just about all that we have for y'all. Dear, do you have what's something that you have that you're looking forward to in our Pride Month discussion after we finished out this first one? What's something that you're looking forward to?
Like a movie that I'm looking forward to talking about, or
a question maybe that you're hoping I'm going to cover? Anything, I guess.
I mean, I guess I will go with a movie that I'm looking forward to talking about because that was the first thing that came to mind.
Yeah.
Priscilla, Queen of the Desert is I'm pumped about that one. Not for any reasons other than like I had no idea what we were getting into.
Yeah.
With a name like that, like I was ready for anything.
And you got it.
I did. And yeah, no, I'm looking forward to that. And honestly, just like our month's discussions, I'm really looking forward to talking about these movies that we have coming up. And get to really go through history and different ebbs and flows of what it means to be a part of the LGBTQ plus community.
Yeah. No, absolutely. I'm really looking forward to it. I think the Priscilla talk is going to be great. I'm trying to get us a guest for that one.
Ooh.
And so we might have another guest along the way. I'm going to work on trying to get us some guests along the way. I'm really looking forward to it. If you haven't, of course, go and check out, like I mentioned, all of our previous month's episodes on Asian American Pacific Islander heritage. Also go and check out Wings, which I mentioned, the review that we did back in February, I believe, was early Oscar films.
Yes.
Yes, because March was Women's History Month.
This year is just like speed skating away. You know?
And so go and check out that one. Go and follow us on social media at the Film Buds Podcast on Instagram, the Film Buds on Twitter. Go and check out the website, thefilmbuds.com. Send us an email at thefilmbudspodcast@gmail.com. Thank you guys, of course, as always, for listening. We, of course, really appreciate you guys coming and listening every week. We recently had a lot of viewers from around the world, in particular, actually, India. So if you're still here with us, hello, thank you, welcome. And yeah, definitely be sure to come back next week. We're going to be tackling a different sort of focus of the LGBTQ spectrum of issues, and we're actually going to be talking a little bit about heavy stuff. The HIV and AIDS epidemic of the 80s, in the lens of Ryan Murphy's film The Normal Heart, which is based on a play of the same name. So definitely be sure to come back next week when we talk about that. I know I definitely sold that.
I mean, honestly, if you had, like, said it with, like, a song and a dance, I would have been like, how dare you?
So, but no, thank you guys as always for listening. Come back next week, and we'll talk to you guys then. Bye!